Hey there, everyone. It's Paul Pavoni, your brand mentor. I wanted to get on here today and talk to you about brand fracture. Would love to hear your comments and get your questions as I go through this. I'll check them out and hopefully respond. But I want to talk about brand fracture. There are four things that I like to talk about when it comes to a brand that fails. And the first one of those is about fracture. And so I'm actually thinking of creating a course on this. If you're interested in that, send me a DM, so I'll let you know when it's ready. But I do plan on doing a course on brand failing and how a brand can fail and what things to do to avoid failing. And so there are four very clear things that I've noticed in 25 years of doing this, where brands sometimes don't reach the full potential of who they can be and where they fail. And so the first thing of those that I want to share with you, and I'll share it briefly, it won't be too long, so hopefully you'll get some quick gold out of this and be able to examine your own brand, do a quick audit, and figure out where you might have some issues that you need to deal with. So the first thing that I want to talk about is brand fracture. When it comes to your brand, you need to look at what is broken. What is broken with your brand? And so there are several things that can be broken with your brand. For one thing, your brand can be very confusing. Your brand could have a logo, could have messaging, could have language, could have an offer, could have several things that confuse people about what is it exactly that you do. And so if you're not careful, that fracture, that confusion will actually affect your brand and make your brand fail. And so you need to look at, where am I confusing? Where am I not making sense? And so there are several places that you can be confusing. You can be confusing in your copy, on your website, on your social media. You can be using words and terms that you fully understand. They make absolute sense to you, but your ideal customer has no idea what you're talking about. And this is a trend that happens with a lot of businesses. It's insider speak. It's preaching to the choir. It's using church talk. It's using language that fully makes sense to you as the professional, but makes no sense to the person you're trying to reach. So you need to be careful about your messaging being fractured, your messaging being confusing. And so look at the words that you're using, look at the content that you're putting out there and see, am I making sense? Does this make sense to me and nobody else? You can use fancy words to try and impress people with your ability to use fancy words. But what might be happening is people are actually not understanding what it is that you're actually doing. So I want to challenge you is to look at where is your brand confusing? Where are you not making sense and you need to make sense a little better? What about being fractured because you're inconsistent? Sometimes your brand can be fractured because it's inconsistent. You say one thing on your LinkedIn. If you say the right thing, maybe you're not even on LinkedIn, you're not even saying the right things there. And then you're saying another thing on Facebook. And then you're saying another thing on your website. Then you're saying another thing on your phone calls. Then you're saying another thing on your Facebook lives or your messages. And so you're inconsistent. And so sometimes brands fail because they're very inconsistent. They say one thing in one place and another thing in another place. So you need to make sure that whatever you're saying, if you don't want your brand to fail, you need to make sure that whatever you're saying is consistent across all platforms, across all mediums. And sometimes it takes somebody to come in and help reel all that in by doing a brand audit. And I do brand audits for businesses sometimes as an outsider coming in and just examining everything that they're doing and seeing where the fractures might be that need to be fixed. The other thing is maybe it's fractured and broken because you have too many call to actions. Do you want them to call? Do you want them to email? Do you want them to sign up for a webinar? Do you want them to send a message to you on Facebook? Do you want them to message you on Instagram? I've seen people use all of these different mediums and all kinds of different calls to actions that really are kind of confusing and fractured. And so you need to look at what is the goal? What is the thing that you want people to act on, or how do you want them to act based on everything that you've just told them? And so look at what, is your call to action confusing? What about your website? Maybe your offer is confusing and fractured. I remember listening to a bunch of entrepreneurs, and they were presenting their business models. They were presenting what they did to investors, and these were legit investors that had checkbooks and were ready to invest. And so they'd make their pitch, they'd make their presentation, and for many of them, at the end of their presentation, the people had to ask, so what is it exactly that you're doing? Like, that was a great presentation. You used lots of words, you used lots of slides. You're excited, you're very excited, but like, what is it exactly that you're selling? Like, what is it that I'm buying? What's your offer? Like, what are the things that you're promising to do for me? And so you need to get super clear on what your offer is, what the results are that you're promising. And if you're not clear on that, you're going to fail. Your business is fractured and it's going to fail. And so you need to look at, where is, what is my offer? What am I trying to actually help people do? What am I trying to solve? What am I providing for them? What exactly is my product and who's it for? And that's the other thing. You need to get super clear on the problem you solve. That's the next thing you need to look at is what problem do you actually solve? If you don't have that super clear, for me, I help businesses with brand clarity and brand creativity. And so if they need clarity in their brand, and if they need creativity, their brand is creatively unprofessional and amateur, I help them with that. If their messaging and their positioning and their audience and their offer are unclear, I help them with clarity. And so you need to look at making sure that your offer is not fractured, not broken, and super clear. The other thing is how do people engage with you? What is the next step for them to do? Sometimes you might have a great message, you might have a great offer, but it's unclear that how do I now work with you? Like, what's my next step to engage in your services? And if you're not clear on that, you're going to run into issues with being effective and being fractured. And so those are just a couple of things that I wanted to share with you. There's a lot more. And as I mentioned earlier, I do want to maybe make a course out of this. And if you're interested in that, I would love to hear from you. Send me a DM and let me know. Hey, I'd love to hear the rest of that. I'd love to know more about that course. If you have any questions, hey, thank you, Dave. Thank you, Hansel, for joining me and giving me some love. If you have any thoughts on this, I'd love to hear them. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear them as well. But share this. If this has helped you, if this has helped you in some way and you feel it can help somebody else, please share it. Get the word out. And you guys have an amazing day. I am actually celebrating my 25th wedding anniversary today. And so I'm not going to be spending a whole lot of time working. I'm going to be spending time with my wife, going out to lunch if we can find a place that actually will serve us, and having a great day. You guys have an amazing day. Thank you once again, guys, for joining me, and take care. Keep in mind, your brand could fail because, for one thing, it could be fractured. Take care, guys.